I'm invincible. I'm paying money. The girl's happy. She's got no money. I got my rocks off. Oh, how good is this?
You're on Bound for Glory on SYN, the only AFL show on SYN, of course. We've got all the games for this week covered, and we're going to look into the All-Australian teams this week. We'll do our mid-year All-Australian teams, so it should be a good show. We'll just introduce the panel. I'm Ethan.
I'm Joe.
I'm Jordan.
I'm Peter.
I'm Damon.
And yesterday we had an interesting contest, probably the closest of the round to, looking at them during the week. Richmond-Adelaide, and Adelaide were very disappointing. They played a brand of football that wasn't reminiscent of their fantastic year last year. They finished third, and they looked, they were contested beasts, winning clearances and overwhelming teams in the centre. And they looked nothing like that. They looked, like they were second guessing themselves by hand and foot. And Richmond just capitalised and eventually paved the way for a very comfortable win, and one that probably sees them a lot closer to finals football.
I think it's probably a mistake on Sanderson's behalf in terms of not tagging Deledio. He struggled with the tag this year so far, and we've seen him become really ineffectual when he's had someone run with him. I think they've gone. Cochin only had 22 possessions, and I think they've chosen to not get on Deledio after quarter time.
He's done that twice in a row now. Against Hanbury last week, at half time he thought, okay, I'm going to tag Hanbury. He's only had 28 disposals to half time, and Deledio had 17 to half time. 5 marks, most of them were effective, and he was on his own on a half back flank and swept up everything, and he was playing fantastic. And it's good to see Brett Deledio running down the wings and playing his best football. And a bit slow by Sanderson, really not something he should be doing. I think he probably misses Dean Bailey a bit, who comes back in about a month's time, who's of course been suspended due to the Melbourne tanking saga. But, I think Sanderson, I'm not sure what's going on in Adelaide. They're second-guessing themselves. They had 61 clangers on the weekend, which was a ridiculously high amount, especially for a team that finished third last year.
Did they overachieve last year? They had a pretty soft draw. They played Gold Coast twice, GWS twice, I think Melbourne twice.
I think that... maybe.
And then got a late run in the finals and nearly got there.
They played all right in the finals, though. They did take it up to Hawthorn.
I think the fact that they came within 5 points of Hawthorn, who we know was such a fantastic team last year and this year again, is enough to say that Adelaide are a quality team. We know they've got such fantastic midfielders in Dangerfield, who was on song yesterday. The only thing he lacked was a bit of straight kicking for goal, and he could have easily had 5, resting forward, which is a fantastic effort from him. And it was almost Tigers versus Dangerfield at some points, the way he was running the game.
I think that's the thing. They do have the cattle there. They've got the great players that could potentially get them towards another finals run, but I think this year Sanderson's been a bit too slow to react, obviously in terms of tagging, and I think what he did to try to counteract Deledio was put someone up from the forward line around the midfield. So they've had 5 forwards, and I think that Deledio was able to get a lot off the half back flank because it was just it was easier to mop up because there just wasn't that extra player there.
And it's interesting because obviously the Crows weren't as clean as the Tigers for the match. And one example is who was it? Bernie Vince had 9 clangers from 19
disposals.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Half.
You can't do that in AFL football.
That's shocking, really.
They went. The conditions probably weren't perfect yesterday. There was a little bit of rain before and during the game. But for a team to go at less than 60% kicking efficiency, Richmond went at 67, Adelaide went at 59. Just below 60. So that's inexcusable for an AFL team. To run that low, especially when they should be pushing for a final spot and probably have the quality and the cattle, as you mentioned, Jordan, to be right up there ahead of teams that such as Collingwood and Carlton and Essendon probably. So
I think it's a bit hard when Adelaide lost Taylor Walker to an ACL and then they lost Kurt Tippett. Their forward line has a little structure, but
How does that affect their clangers in the midfield, though?
Yeah.
kicking to the forward, isn't it kicking to the forward line and
Yeah, clean disposal.
clean to
Yeah, but you still can kick it out in front of a forward. Any forward can lead at least.
Like
Like
Josh Jenkins has been
No,
very good
yeah.
this year.
like 9 clangers is just ridiculous. So-
And I just, going forward, I mean, they averaged 12 marks inside 50 a game this year. They had 3 yesterday. Richmond were just mopping up everywhere. And there was no defensive side to Adelaide's game yesterday, I thought, and I think that's been the story of their year. Players like, I think Nathan Van Berlo, I think Nathan Foley probably had a game Van Berlo wishes he could have had. Foley played a very good defensive game. He's a good midfielder who can go both ways. 25 disposals, 8 tackles, and he's a very important part of their midfield structure. And Van Berlo, yesterday didn't have that much of the football. Only laid 2 tackles. It's been the story of his year, and that they're just struggling at the moment.
Dave Asprey's a guy, he came in as a late inclusion yesterday. I think he's a guy whose future's a bit uncertain. How do we see his game?
Well, he was off concussed, wasn't he?
yeah. Yeah. Great call. Yeah, it was
I think
6 disposals. He got knocked out, and they decided to sub him.
He
So.
played pretty well before he got
Yeah.
knocked out.
I mean,
Yeah.
to be part of a defence that was basically picking off every Adelaide pass inside 50, he did his role and he performed okay before he went off. So, credit to him.
One player that continues to disappoint in a way, even though he did have a good game, was Dusty Martin. Kicked 4 goals, 2 had 19 disposals, but I think he started the first half with 11 disposals and then tapered off a bit with only 8. You think he'd want to carry on with it? He's such a good player, got massive potential, and just drops off. Even though he was kicking goals, as I know you're about to say, Pete.
No, I was about to say,
No.
is this normal AFL or is this we talking Supercoach now?
No, it's not super. Even though I've got him, he actually performed all right in
There we
Supercoach,
go.
so I'm not complaining there. But he just tapers off. I don't know what it is. It's strange.
He does that. He's done that a lot this year. He's had either a good first half or he's had one fantastic quarter and then he'll just go absolutely silent for another quarter. And it's just it's bizarre. I think he's got the tank to be able to play a full game at a high level, but he just doesn't.
I think you'd take 19 disposals and 4 goals from a player, though. That's still pretty good. So
It's only it's his 4th season, isn't it? I mean, I don't think we should be necessarily expecting 8 disposals a quarter or 7 disposals a quarter, and hitting the scoreboard every now and then from Dustin Martin just yet. I don't think he's.
I think
of
it's
that
because of
calibre
his
just
first
yet.
season. That's why he came in blaze of glory. Everyone went, "Oh, here we go!" And yeah, he hasn't declined. He just hasn't improved as much as everyone thought. But
If he's in his 4th season, he should be able to run out games, though.
No, he does run out games, but not probably as well as he could.
I think that was the biggest issue, though. Like with Martin, because he was behind the Scully Tringo. He was that draft, yeah. The reason I think a lot of people were saying was because he was more ready-made, but the improvement compared to the others in that top group wasn't as much. He was more ready-made to come into AFL, and that's why there are a few question marks as to how much he could improve. And he came in and was obviously one of the best in that group, but yeah, he hasn't improved as much.
Let's chat about Richard Douglas. I know before the show when we were discussing who we'd put in our respective All-Australian sides, Ethu had a massive rap for him. Can you tell us a bit about how he played yesterday?
Probably wasn't his best game. He had 23 disposals at 7 inside 50s, but it's probably not to the standard that he's necessarily been hitting this year. I can't pick off the top of my head what he averages, but I think he's leading the comp in score involvements, and in a midfield that's getting battered this year, he's been fantastic. He's been the one player that you can say has, well, other than Patrick Dangerfield, of course, who's probably in the world of his own at the moment, the one player that has actually taken a step forward, and he's helping to lead the Adelaide midfield at the moment. He's done a fantastic job, midfield, half forward, flank, and he's been fantastic this year. And we'll discuss this later, of course, but he's probably in the All-Australian team at the moment on current form.
He won Best and Fairest, I think it was 2 years ago, and I think last year he had a bit of quiet season. Do you think he's probably up there with Dangerfield, I guess, in terms of the Best and Fairest this year?
Yeah, well, it'd be Dangerfield. I think you'd pick automatically to win the Best and Fairest, but Douglas would have to be pushing a close second. No, you go.
Yeah, one of the guys that I thought was that stood up majorly for the Crows, that's always been bagged pretty much this season. He's had a shocker, let's face it. Is Jason Porplesia, 23 pressure acts, the most of anyone in the game, which obviously he's not hitting the scoreboard like he used to. He's had some pretty bad injuries over the last few years, but 23 pressure acts is at least showing he's getting back into it at least.
Well, there was that year when he stayed at home. He was a medium forward, and he kicked 57 goals, I believe, in one season. You can't do that in AFL football anymore. With the sub rule, teams and players require a lot more flexibility, and players like Paul Pleasure have to add a midfield element to their game, and he did that yesterday. He pushed up the ground, he took a few marks, he won a bit of contested ball, he had 11 contested possessions, and he was very good in helping deliver the ball up forward. I mean, he went at 57% but efficiency, but he tried, he found his own ball, and he played a good game.
Can we put a line through Adelaide for this season?
Yeah.
I wouldn't jump to that just yet. I mean, I'm not sure what their draw's like in the next few months.
Not good. They won't make 8. No chance, I reckon.
And there was a incident that Aiden on the text line has brought our attention to, which I thought was quite funny. Jack Rewell, he in the forward line, he milked a free kick, and and Ben, who's laughing in the corner there, made reference to Lindsay Thomas. It was Lindsay Thomas like... He slid down. He pretty much he dropped to his knees and actually went the full slide and ducked his head as well and milked the free kick, the head high tackle.
David Mackay was ready to tackle him around the waist. Yeah. That's how bad it was.
And Triple M, listening to that broadcast, they said that one of the umpires, the closer one, had said, "Nah, play on," and the one that was about 80 metres away actually paid the free kick because they didn't see the good vision. Now, this is a thing that they were saying you've got to stamp out, because obviously if there's an umpire that's 20 metres away that says, "Nah, he's ducked his head," surely the umpire 80 metres away would go, maybe there's something sus about this. But no, they paid the free, and
But it was high, though. It was over the shoulder.
It doesn't mean it's a good free kick.
If you duck your head, though, it's not a...
It's becoming a precedent almost that players are now starting to realise that, if we lead into a tackle and, put your head first, someone's shoulder clips, your jaw, all of a sudden you've got a free kick. Players that are milking these, it's becoming a blight on the game, and something that the AFL really should stamp out.
And what would you suggest gets done about this? Would you say that it should be at least a free kick to the opposition if it happens?
I would just call play on. I mean, they've already disadvantaged themselves by ducking into a tackle completely when they could have fended off the tackler and kept running and kicked the goal. I mean, Jack Rewell could have done that, and he chose the easy way out, and he kicked the goal, and it was a bit unfortunate. But moving on, we had a game on Friday night, Carlton versus Hawthorn. And Carlton, they hadn't beaten a top 8 team this year, I don't think, and they really took it to Hawthorn. I was quite impressed with the way they played. Midfielders like Judd and Gibbs and McLean. Simpson probably had one of his best games of the year. He probably hasn't hit the form he did last year when Carlton were looking okay, and Simpson's a good player, and he had a very good game on Friday night, and they took it to him for a half, and actually they looked quite impressive and looked like a team that really could solidly finish in the 8 this year.
And one thing that's very interesting is the fact that, looking at the scores breakdowns, 21 of the 28 goals were from turnovers. That's huge. For both teams, that's huge. Considering 6 goals came from stoppages and only 1 from kick-ins, 21 goals.
Especially as Carlton are a fairly strong stoppage team as well, and Hawthorn are a very, skillful...
they don't usually turn it over, Hawthorn.
They don't usually sorry, go on, Jordan.
I think that's, we've been saying this a lot this year, that clearances, are no longer a massive thing. I think, obviously, scoring from stoppages, you can kick a lot of goals from that, but obviously, I think clean disposal is what's key to keeping the ball.
And of course, Carlton had 52 clearances to 30 on Friday night, so I think that's enough of a motive to say sack clearances. But Carlton, I thought they were fantastic in the way they applied pressure on the ball carrier. I mean, Hawthorn had the first 5 minutes where we thought, here we go, this is going to be a 10-goal win to Hawthorn, continue the streak. And Carlton regrouped and they applied lots of pressure, and, they won the footy and they kept the footy. And Hawthorn, when they did have the footy, they couldn't hit targets as well as they could. Carlton were very good structurally and, trying to force turnovers as much as they possibly could. And, they got the scores from it, and they looked quite impressive in that first half, and they eventually got the lead out to 17 points, and we thought an upset was on the cards.
Had Murphy not got injured, would Carlton have won?
No, I think we performed probably better without him. be honest, which is quite strange. But yeah, when he went off, we performed just as good or a little bit better than when he was on.
It's worth noting, though, that there were only 6 Carlton players who scored double figures possessions-wise in the second half, so which was Gibbs, Judd, McLean, Walker, Scotland and Keisha. So they were the only ones who scored 10 disposals or more in the second half.
We just didn't get the ball in the second half. When Hawthorn were dominating, they were just playing possession footy and just couldn't get our hands on it.
I think Hawthorn's defence was fantastic on Friday night. Ben Stratton, he was great. Brian Lake, fantastic. I think Josh Gibson didn't really play on an opponent, so he was
as
doing his
usual.
usual unaccountable best. So I think,
he still played quite well. I thought, spoiling over the top, that's the way he plays.
I think Carlton's forward line, conversely, wasn't as good as normal. Jeff Garlett, who's been in scintillating form so far this year, he was very quiet. Eddie Betts, not so great. Sam Rowe, actually, I was really impressed with him. I think when he went up forward, he's matched up against Sean Burgoyne instead of Josh Gibson, so pretty probably poor tactically there, but he took a few good marks. Wasn't a great kick of the ball, but he played quite well.
And sorry, Joe, you go ahead.
No, you go first, David.
Okay, I was just going to say, what do we make of the umpiring? Now, Mick Malthouse had a bit of a red hot go at the in his press conference, and he had a bit of a go at Richo as well when he interviewed him after the game. I was at the game, and I thought there was quite a few that were questionable for both sides, and I was fuming at Razor Ray especially.
It seems the holding the ball rule has gone out the window.
As Mick Malthouse said, he had a bit of a go, and he's like, oh well, I think they've changed the rule on me because it seems as though they're not paying it nowadays.
Mick does it so well when he's talking about umpires. He won't get a fine, but he does it subtly and it hurts them as much.
Last time he did, he started talking about planets aligning and all this kind of thing, so that way everyone goes...
The full moon.
Yeah. If you don't make any sense, then he's making sense.
I think in reference to the holding the ball rule, it was a fantastic Judd tackle which wasn't paid, and I thought it was quite surprising. And then there was, I think, a pretty soft free kick given away in the last, and it was just prior to Sam Mitchell's blatant throw. And I think if I was a Carlton fan of that game and didn't really hear, obviously might not be able to hear the explanation, I think it would have been quite questionable. I would have lost it if I was at the game.
The Mitchell throw?
Yeah.
It was pushing the back to wait beforehand.
Yeah, beforehand, that's they said.
I didn't think it was that... it was there, but it was a bit soft, so...
Didn't change the result, though.
No.
I think that's the important thing. As long as umpires aren't actually changing and influencing games to that extent, I think it's not that bad. But the holding the ball rule, I think it's getting more inconsistent as games go on, as the year goes on, and I think it's something that the AFL has to stamp down on. Right, you have to go, right, this is the interpretation. There is no ifs or buts. You can't extend the rule to whatever you think may or may not be holding the ball, and get umpires just to pay them as they are, and not have different interpretations across each game, because otherwise players get very confused, and they complain when umpires give free kicks, and so do us fans.
Some moron threw a water bottle from level 3 at the umpires.
Yeah, don't look at me. That wasn't me, Joe. That wasn't me. I didn't have a water bottle on me. Otherwise, I probably would have.
Start throwing supporters.
The sub for Hawthorn, John Simpkin, I thought he came on and straight away had an immediate impact. I think in the first.
He's a ball magnet, isn't he?
Yeah, in 9 touches, he had something like probably about 30% game time, and straight away he came on. He had an assist. He ended up with 2 for the game and 3 score involvements in very little time. So we love to see an active sub.
Of all the players that Geelong have to list, all the talented players they have there, they had to get rid of Simpkin, who's been fantastic for Hawthorn this year. He had 30 odd disposals against Gold Coast, in 3 quarters, and he's become a very good part of probably an ageing midfield, and he's part of the next generation for Hawthorn.
And Luke Hodge is going to come under fire for a couple of incidents. One which I thought nothing was in was his hit on Murphy. That was just innocuous, and he was going for the ball. But his hit on Henderson, I reckon he deserves at least a week. He ran past the football and deliberately took out Henderson. It was a stray elbow. You should get a week for everything.
Got him high as well.
Yeah,
I think one was accidental and the other was also accidental. I thought he was trying to brace for contact more so and accidentally clipped him in the head. And,
recklessness he should go for at least.
He could have probably done more to prevent the contact, and that probably might see him get a week, but
probably 8.
Accidental contact. Yeah, just give him 10,000.
Yeah, is it fair to say we don't know what he's going to get?
Yeah. We have no clue.
Yeah,
a fair bump, and what's happening to the game?
Yep.
I want to raise an interesting point. I think today Damien Hardwick was talking about when he first got the list, he had to play a lot of players that weren't ready yet. I think Carlton might be in a little bit of a similar position. I think Josh Bootsma in the last couple of weeks, players like White and so forth, they've seen a little bit out of their depth. Josh Bootsma, I think he's still very light on, and to me he hasn't been a clean enough ball user to warrant his selection. Do we think that? Is Mick just playing these people because he's got a few favourites, or what's happening here?
Well, Jeremy Laidler and Nick Nigan are sitting in reserves. I can't understand that. I can't explain that. I don't know whether Mick's playing favourites, whether people are falling out of favour at the club, but, something's up. And, I think players are taking a bit of time to adjust to Mick. I think, structurally, they're a little bit up and down. I know Keisha lost Mitchell a couple of times in the third quarter and really let him run wild, and Mitchell had a very good quarter as well in the third. And, I think players are still adjusting to Mick, and when they do, Carlton will be a good side, but it's going to take time. I think that was to be expected with a new coach, but it's interesting.
And with Bootsma, is he one of the players as the fastest player to go from a cult status to someone who is just bagged by his own supporters?
The whipping boy.
Yeah, whipping boy. Yeah, he's gone from cult status because when he first came in, everyone was on the back of him because of his hair and everything like that. Going, this is awesome. Skinny, pale guy with blonde hair. Everyone was on the back of him. I reckon 2 games later, they're all like, "Get him out! Like, we don't want a bar of him." Like, I've never seen a guy suddenly fall so far.
I think he needs to be locked up in the gym for 2 years.
Yeah, he's way too scared.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, he's obviously got some talent. I think he was taken with a high pick, so give him some time and he'll come on.
But we're going to go to some SYN messages. Of course, you can text us in on 0427 767 767 or online at syn.org.au. We'll be back after this.
Not listening to Objection is criminal.
Does the brain generate as much power as either a 10 watt or a 20 watt light bulb?
10 watt or 20 watt? Let's go 20 watt.
Sorry,
No,
it's 10
damn it.
watt.
It's 10 watt. Damn it. How did they measure that? Was it like luminosity or something?
I'm not sure. I just humanbody.net tells me these things, so I can't check. In fact, I'm not a scientist, I have other things that I do.
Objection.
5 to 6 weekdays.
8 a.m. weekends.
Panorama, giving you both sides of every story.
Religion does not have any evidence backing it up. It is being used in politics to the detriment of many people in society.
We're a lobby group representing our supporters, members of the Christian constituency, seeking to have Christian values influencing and informing public policy in Australia.
Panorama, 4:30 weekdays on SYN.
Tune into We Need to Talk About Film on SYN to hear interviews from film buffs and reviewers from all around Australia. And of course, here's some funky tunes from your favourite films to get you through your Saturday night. Tune into We Need to Talk About Film with me, Georgia, from 6 p.m. on Saturdays here on SYN.
You're back on Bound for Glory on SYN. Text us in on 0427 767 767. I'm going to chat about last night's game, the Bombers and the Suns. I think one of the stories of the night was Brendan Goddard. He probably played his best game for the year, having 38 touches, played very much outside, close to 30 uncontested possessions, and I think one of the better games for the club.
Well, I think it was a very uncontested game, and that played to Brendan Goddard's strengths and probably disadvantaged Gold Coast a little bit because they're a very strong contested side, but. Brendan Goddard had the ball on a string, basically. If it wasn't Gary Ablett with the footy, it was Brendan Goddard, and he was fantastic. He was efficient with the, by disposal. Kept pumping it inside 50. I think 2 of his marks were contested and inside 50 as well. So he was up and down all over the ground, and for a player to rack up 38 disposals and be as good a user as Brendan Goddard is, I think that's very vital to a win. And he was a big part of it.
Yeah. Also, Joey Daniher kicked 3 goals, was it? Mm-hmm. And he's got a raking left foot, hasn't he, Jordan?
He kicks it a mile.
Yes, he had a shot from 55 out on the run. He slotted that, I think. He was great. He had 17 disposals, 8 marks, 5 of those were contested, 3 goals, 1. Jaeger O'Meara also fantastic, notching up his first 30 disposal game for the year. And
First of many.
Yeah, I think they're probably going to be 2 of the standouts for the coming years.
He is ridiculously good for a player who's played 10 or so games. I think a player coming into the system, a midfielder, and dominating so early, I think it's reminiscent of, Chris Judd's early days, and, they're very similar players at the same age, and, if Jager O'Meara, wins a Brownlow and by, 2016, I would not be surprised in the slightest.
30 disposals, 10 contested possessions, 7 marks and 5 clearances. So
and a couple of goal assists as well.
Yeah, he's very strong on the inside.
I would say that Rising Stars all wrapped up for him. Anyway,
unless
because Wines has dropped off, and Mitchell's the other one who's coming up.
Unless he repeats any AFL form and has 50 disposals a game for the rest of the year, I think it's O'Meara's.
It's going to be O'Meara's. Yeah. And I mean, we already know this, but Gold Coast are going to be one scary team coming to the future. Like with O'Meara and Bennell. Bennell's still out, is he?
No, Bennell's still out.
Yeah, still out, and they've got a couple of others who are out. Zach Smith, of course.
They're still missing, Nathan Bock as well is a very good defender and relieves a bit of heat off Rory Thompson.
And Nichols has been quite good. Like, obviously, not as good as his last 2 games, which were just freaky, but still, 19 hit-outs and 26% to advantage, which is really good for a ruckman.
He's walked into the side in his first game, as the second ruckman behind Zach Smith. Is probably, he's not the best ruckman in the competition, I think that's fair to say. And he's walked in, he's having 30 hit-outs a game, and he's been fantastic. And against Paddy Ryder, he probably matched him for 4 quarters, and he's been fantastic for Gold Coast over the past few weeks.
And on the Ablett watch again, another 36 disposals. Does no one even bother? Like, if they do, it doesn't work.
Locking was good as well.
Yeah, I know, but he just
only kept him to 36 disposals, 21 contested. And,
that guy.
Goal assists as well.
That guy is a freak. We were discussing off air that Ablett has got this Brownlow wrapped up. There's no point even bothering to attend the night, because right now
first player to hit 66 votes.
Yeah,
let's just
he's just a freak. Like, he does everything. He's everywhere. And he's a major reason why the Gold Coast are doing so well, because he shows leadership on and off the field. And he just basically wills his teammates across the line, just says, jump on my shoulders, we're going to win this game. And, he just does everything. He's the complete player.
Michael Hurley with another injury again. If he should be right to go for the next game, because they've got the bye next. But does this pave the way for Scott Gumbleton to make a return?
What was the diagnosis?
Well, he's done a wrist, and the doctor said he'll be right in the next 10 days for the next game.
Doc Larkin said he had a broken bone on his wrist somewhere, like a small fracture or something that he was playing through. And I'm just wondering, for a player who's a marking forward, he's a very contested player, gets himself in a lot of contests. Why would you play him?
Yeah,
when you have Scott Gumbleton, who kicks 2 goals a game, and he was actually a very decent forward who should be getting a game. Why would you play Michael Hurley if he's not fit?
Well, it's not that he's not fit. I think that he's been playing through injuries quite a bit. I don't remember the last time he was ever 100% fit, to be honest with you. So I think he has had that the trouble with the wrist and the hand before, but I think it's small enough to be able to play on with, and this is only a minor setback, so it should be okay.
You keep getting these niggling injuries like Hurley did in the last quarter, and you don't get any consistency. I would rather see him, miss 3 weeks or so and having fully fit and play out the rest of the year than play with a broken bone on your wrist and all of a sudden, you're getting it injured and you're starting to miss games frequently and not getting any consistency, not playing, 2-3 games in a row. So I think it's pretty silly, honestly.
Is he a better backman than forward?
I don't. Well, everyone seems to say he is, but every time I've seen him live, he's been a better forward than back. I don't think he copes against the monsters. Like, when I've seen him against Travis Cloke, he's struggled. So I would say that the stronger forwards he doesn't do as well against, but the more athletic ones he does better against. So I could imagine him, if he was a defender, he'd go on that athletic forward and leave the stronger ones to Carlisle. But I think he's a really good forward.
I think he's a better player when he's going for the ball rather than focusing on his opponent. So, probably best up forward. And, Jake Carlisle, we know how good he is down back. And Cale Hooker was, he was good last night. He had 23 disposals, plenty of intercept marks, of course. That's becoming his claim to fame, I suppose. And Dustin Fletcher, of course, I don't think he played last night. But we know how good he is still at the age of 100.
And Tate Pearce was Oh, old man plays football. Yeah, Tate Pears was back this week because most people were saying how Hooker and Carlisle and Pears all in the same team. I know Fletcher was out, so that made a difference. But those guys, there's usually that thing where they may not be able to play all three of them, but they managed to fit them all in. So.
Well, I think Hooker, Carlisle and Pears are all pretty good as uncontested players as well, so they can use the ball out of the back line. So it's not, I think if it was like another, I guess, slower sort of more lockdown defender, probably wouldn't work, but all three together isn't too bad.
And what do you make of Scott Gumbleton? We were mentioning, does he go at the end of the year, surely?
Well, look, I think he's fantastic depth, and I think it'd be a shame to see him go because when he has played this year, he's been pretty good. I think if he was to go like last year or the year before, he had next to no currency, whereas this year I think if they traded him, it'd probably be at his probably highest value to when he was first drafted. So I don't know. I think if he goes, they might be able to get a second rounder for him.
I think Scott Gumbleton is a player who would probably be in the best 22 of most clubs, excluding Essendon. That's his problem at the moment, and I think he'd probably fare better at another club, to be honest. When he actually gets an opportunity as a first or second tall forward, and maybe a team like Port Adelaide or something can make a play for him. They need a tall forward, and when they've got a quality midfield coming through that can deliver it to him.
Although two teams that do need a quality forward are Fremantle and Brisbane, so which is quite interesting. Which brings us into the next game, which Freo comfortably accounted for Brisbane. Although Brisbane, they weren't too bad pressure-wise. They just don't have the players to match it with the Freo pressure. I guess compared to Freo, the pressure isn't. You never win, but...
Well, they weren't that bad in the first quarter. Freo had a lot more of the footy. They controlled things. They had over 50 effective kicks for the quarter. And, Brisbane, when they had their opportunities, they took them. They ran the ball down the ground with a bit of pace. And, Ash McGrath looked threatening. I think he was playing on Everton. Ran off his legs a couple of times. And I think Freo were a little bit sloppy. How good their structure is. And I don't think they were as awake in the first quarter yesterday. And, I think Brisbane capitalised, and Freo settled, and they started to control the footy. They had almost 400 disposals once again, and plenty of marks. So they controlled the game. It was on their terms, and after about quarter time, it really settled in, and Freo controlled the game.
It is worth mentioning before we do anything else. Simon Black breaking the record, 319 games is just amazing.
And subbed off.
Yeah, what do we think about that?
Well, no, he's been under quite a cloud. I read today for the past 10 days he's been really ill. He's had really struggled not being able to sleep, and he said to the club doctors that he was struggling, and they made the change. They said they'll sub him off. He didn't ask to be subbed off or anything. So
that's a shame, because he was being tagged by Ryan Crowley, and we know how good a tagger he is, and he had 12 disposals, 5 clearances to half time, and he was actually doing quite well against probably the best tagger in the competition.
Yeah.
So it was a shame to see him subbed off. But if he wasn't feeling well, he wasn't feeling well. But I think Michael Voss probably made another mistake by playing Hanley and Rockcliffe forward. He did that frequently, and that's two of your best midfielders. Not starting in the centre, not starting on the wing. You play them resting forward, you're not going to get it to them. No. You start... Jack Redden's a quality footballer. He can't do it on his own, especially with Simon Black subbed off, not feeling well. So, you got to start your best midfielders in the midfield, and, he's done that a bit this year. Rockcliffe has played a bit forward, and Rockcliffe is a better midfielder than forward, and, that's where you got to play him.
That's the thing is, he is a good forward, but they need him a lot more up in the midfield, and... Yeah, no, Voss should be playing Rockcliffe as 80% game time in the midfield, because he does have that tank.
I would go 100.
I don't know if he can run out 100% game, but yeah, I think Crowley said today that he was pretty relieved when Simon Black he put on the red vest, because he was a little bit sick of chasing him around.
And another midfielder who's obviously had another injury concerns for Brisbane is Daniel Rich. He struggles to handle a tag, hasn't obviously had his best season, obviously won the Rising Star in his first one, and then sort of drifted off the radar a bit since then. This is his third, is it, I think, now, or fourth?
Season?
Yeah.
It's his fifth, isn't it?
Holy wow. Okay, well, he's just...
Tom-esque.
Yeah, no, he's just dropped right off. That's wow, that's almost Jared Rivers-like. Yeah, he's 19 disposals wasn't too bad for a first game back, but he's sort of... he was meant to be the next sort of big thing, and the others have gone past him, Rockcliffe, Redden, etc.
I think the thing is, he was a ready-made footballer when he was drafted, so that's why he was more impressive.
Well, to be fair to Jared Rivers, just quickly going off topic, he couldn't get on the park after his first year.
Well, that's the same thing with Rich.
And Daniel Rich could, so...
Rich has been more disappointing than Redden, for sure, but he's had that injury this year as well.
Another guy that's been pretty disappointing, Nick Subban. I think he's been very poor this year. He's got all the skills to become a very high-level footballer. He's a fantastic kick, and when he's played in the midfield, he can get the ball, but he's been, I don't know, I think he might be on the chopping block this year because he hasn't done enough to warrant a spot week in, week out. David Mundy as well, fantastic game yesterday. 27 disposals, 2 goals, and I think he's one of the most underrated footballers in the land. I think when you've got Fife and Barlow around you, and you're probably the third string midfielder, he's fantastic, and I think he'd be right up there for the best and fairest this year.
I think at quarter time, Mundy realised we have to win this game. We got to make it a comfortable win. He had 23 disposals in that time, and he dominated, and he kicked 2 goals as well and had a goal assist. So he was a monster in the centre, and he really turned it on. He was pivotal in Freo's win.
It was worth noting as well, that Freo had more hit-outs than Lions, and that's Clark and Hanneth going up against Louis. I know Louis was pretty much by himself because McKeever is McKeever, but Clark and Hanneth did a really good job, I thought. 25% to advantage, which was Clark, 32 to Leuenberger. So obviously both rucks are getting it to their midfielders quite a bit, but considering they don't have Sandy and Griffin, they're doing all right.
They're not doing as bad as probably we thought they would. Sandilands and Griffin are 2 quality ruckmen, and having them both gone. And Kepler Bradley, who's he's very good relief. He can probably ruck 20% of the game and takes a lot of heat off the main ruckman. And they've been doing very well without him.
It was a typical Ross Lyon game. Sorry, do you reckon? Scrappy, get the win. Nothing boring.
Yeah, started off pretty boring and defensive, and was certainly scrappy.
It started pretty boring and finished pretty boring, to be honest.
It's been for a season though. They're manic with pressure. They pressure every single side. They choke them. They make sure they get the 4 points at the end of the day. So that's all that matters to them.
I think Ross Lyon's priority is on controlling the game and not necessarily making it entertaining. I think he'd rather a 90 to 60 point win than a 130, 120 shootout. I think you take that every day of the week.
If you go to a Fremantle football game to get entertained, then you probably need to get a life. So
you're in the wrong. You're in the wrong venue. I think that's not so. Jordan Lyle, he played a very good game yesterday. I thought he made the move from Hawthorn after being stuck behind Franklin and Roughhead and Hale as well. And that's fair. And he's cemented himself. With Jonathan Brown out, he's played a couple of games now. He's going at a goal a game and. He kicked 3 yesterday, I believe, and he took marks inside 50. When he could, he had limited opportunity. He still, he controlled it up forward, and he has good hands, good kick for goal, and he looks like a very promising player for Brisbane down the road.
He reminds me of another Brisbane player, Cornelius. Where's he gone?
Probably lingering in the AFL reserves at the moment. I honestly don't know.
I think when he was drafted, I watched him when he was playing for Tasmania. He was very good marking forward, but he was always, I guess, a little bit too skinny and probably not physical enough to take the game on. And I think that's probably the same issue now.
Well, he took 3 contested marks yesterday, 4 marks inside 50, and for a player to have that presence against a very good backline, there's McFarlane and Johnson, and there's a lot of quality defenders in there. I think every Freo player is a very good player defensively, and Lyle, he took what opportunities he could, and he played quite well.
We've got a few texts in. Damon, do you just want to read them out?
Yeah, we got one from Christian, I think it is. Bootsma's holding a spot for when Andy McGuinness returns. Was great last year until he did his ACL. Mick trialling Laidler as a forward is confusing, but had 10 marks as a half forward yesterday. So I've heard that as well, that he's trying to turn Laidler into a bit of a forward, which is kind of perplexing.
He's actually making him look really good because he puts him in the forward line with Sean Hampson, so Laidler looks like a complete star down there.
I look like a star next
I had a look at the VFL review yesterday. Sean Hampson was convincingly best on ground, so make of that what you will. Dead serious. After the break, we'll
get some stats.
We'll head to some SIN messages. Make sure you text us in on 0427 767 767. You're listening to Bound for Glory.
A side quest is an optional section of a video game and is commonly found in role-playing games.
It is a smaller mission within a larger storyline and can be used as a means to provide non-linear structures to an otherwise linear plot.
As a general rule, the completion of side quests are not essential for the game to be finished, but can bring various benefits to the player characters.
Also non-essential but highly awesome is side quests and Sin.
So tune in Fridays at 11 PM to hear SideQuest, Sin's home of indie and retro gaming.
Hey Scylla, are you feeling 100% you today?
Yeah, Kathy, why?
Well, actually, you're only 10% you.
What do you mean?
Well, there are 10 times more bacterial cells in the human body than there are human cells.
Oh, I'm feeling a little bit less of myself now. Well, did you know there are as many hairs on your body as a chimpanzee? We just don't notice.
No way.
Tune into the Science Hour on Sundays at 3 PM to learn more about the wonderful world of science.
The Burbs, exploring the suburbs with Rose and Till, 9 AM to 10 AM Tuesdays, 90.7 Sin Radio.
Politics, religion,
sex,
environment,
music,
science,
health,
Education,
drugs,
money,
jobs,
foreign affairs,
national affairs.
local events.
What matters to you?
Panorama, Sin's current affairs program.
Weekdays 4:30 to 5 PM.
Here on Bound for Glory on Sin, text us in on 0427 767 767. Sean Hampson update: 13 kicks, 7 handballs, 7 marks, 2 goals, and 21 effective hitouts, and a best on ground display according to Howard Lee.
Well,
so,
according to the VFL
you
review,
guys, I like Sean Hampson.
According to the VFL review, he wasn't in the best, so we're sticking with that because it's better for readers.
No, I'm going to give that one to Jordan. I think he wins that round, and he'll keep tracking Sean Hampson's progress in the VFL. But I think we've got the All-Australian discussions at the moment, and you know it's always an interesting topic to look at, and you know the players who are probably performing the best in the league, and you know who can keep it up, who can maintain that form for the rest of the year, and you know who's been in superb form as of now. So I think we should probably look at the backs. I think Scott Thompson's got one of the key position spots locked up, and I think the other probably has to go to Jake Carlisle as well. I don't think there's much debate about that. Like, you know, there probably hasn't been a key defender who's controlled the game down back as much as, you know, Thompson and Carlisle have. You know, they've been fantastic this year for North and Essendon respectively, so I don't think there's much debate about that.
No, I think the only other person that's probably in that contention is Harry Taylor, but I think you could probably have one as a back pocket or whatever. So I think that's pretty consensus that Carlisle and Scott Thompson are definitely All-Australian.
Yep, and I reckon the other backs that we have there, like Smalls-wise, Ibbotson, Hanley and McVeigh are the three that you'd probably put up there.
Oh, my man Michael Hibbert's not too happy
about
that.
Well, I only named 3. I was waiting for you guys to name a 4th.
Yeah,
but
Michael Hibbert's got a back pocket, signed, sealed and delivered.
Andrew Walker as well, I think he's been fantastic off half-back line, so I think he should be considered as well, potentially even just for a bench spot.
Yeah.
Well, I had Hibbert and Ibbotson in the back pockets, and then Walker and Nick Malcheski on the back flank. I think Malcheski's flown under the radar this year a bit. He's really stepped up even further. You know, he's coming off 4 knee reconstructions, of course. We know that. It's been well documented, but he's been fantastic this year. He's averaging, 23, 24 disposals off half-back flank, most of them effective, of course, and I think he's been a very good performer, and I think probably deserves a spot there.
Alright, well, I guess for the midfield, there's obviously a few guys in there like Dangerfield, Hanbury, Watson, Mitchell, and some guy called Ablett. He probably slots in there somewhere. I'm sure he can find a spot.
Yeah, haven't heard much about him.
Would you give him the captaincy?
Oh,
ahead of Glass?
Glass wouldn't make the team. So
like last year?
Oh.
Didn't think he should have even made the squad last year. Bloody captain.
At least they didn't give it to Nick Nat or Cyril or something, which I could expect. But yeah, who are the midfielders? Barlow's another one that could push for it.
Probably Fife as well. He'd be up there. But
I've got Ryan Griffin on the wing.
Yep. Sure. I'm happy with that.
I think he missed the first 2 games, but beside that, he's been phenomenal for the Western Bulldogs this year. You know, they're very contested mids. You know, players who probably can't run it out as well as Griffin does, and he adds another dynamic element to their game, and he's been insurmountable. You know, he's been dominant in the midfield this year, and just probably deserves a spot there.
What about the Collingwood duo of Swan and Pendlebury?
No. Not Swan, probably Pendlebury.
Pendlebury would be pushing for a bench spot, I think, at the moment. He wouldn't be on the field.
In the centre.
Oh, all right. I haven't thought he's been that good.
I think it's because they're just consistently fantastic that we're more impressed with the others such as Hanbury and Griffin.
I think the fact that Collingwood are 6th, 7th on the ladder, and the fact that Pendlebury's been often their only midfielder performing up to the standard that he can. Basically, he's been a very good defensive midfielder, running back and taking marks and adding defensive elements to the game. And I think he's been fantastic this year and probably deserves a spot in the midfield.
Let's move on to forwards now. We'll start off with the key forwards. Nick Riewoldt, Josh Kennedy, probably consensus there.
Yep, locked in.
Yep. Jeremy Cameron, maybe a bench spot.
I could get a spot in the forward pocket.
Pocket or a bench, one of them. He'll be in the team.
I think the fact that he's kicked so many goals with so little delivery. GWS are 18th on the ladder, and they're not getting very many inside 50s at all. And the fact that he's converted so many of them into goals it's been fantastic for GWS and fantastic for Cameron. He probably deserves a spot, just because of how efficient he's been. Not about the goals. It's what opportunities he take, and someone like Josh Kennedy's getting plenty of opportunity inside 50 and a lot more than Cameron, and Cameron's nearly kicked as many goals, so I think Cameron definitely deserves a spot.
At this stage of his career, he's had 27 games, 60 goals. In comparison, at 27 games, Jason Dunstall had 72, Gary Ablett Sr. 67, Matthew Lloyd 58, and Buddy 33. So stacking up pretty well there.
He's going okay, but I think half forwards. I think Richie Douglas is a cert on the half forward flank. He's been fantastic through the midfield and leading up to half forward. So I think he deserves a spot there. And I had Daniel Hanbury on the half forward flank just due to the fact that extra midfielder, I couldn't fit him in the general midfield, so I just chucked him there. And I think Lindsay Thomas deserves a spot in the forward pocket. I think we got Ben, our producer, shaking his head, the North supporter, of course. But he's second in the column at the moment.
He's leading. He's leading at the moment until today when Cameron kicks 8.
But nonetheless, he's leading right now.
Yeah.
So
what about Matthew Stokes? Just throw up another name.
Yeah, definitely. I had Stokes in my team.
Garlett and Steve Johnson, I think, will all be up there as well. I think Johnson, surprisingly, has gone under the radar. He's had phenomenal stats this year.
Surprising for a player as magical as Johnson is. He's flown under the radar. But I got Stokes on the bench, and I had Garlett in the other pocket. I think his work up the ground and delivering inside 50. He's an effective player. He's efficient in delivering inside 50, and he also kicks a lot of goals, so I think he deserves a spot in the forward pocket.
And then the two rucks of Minson and Pike was pretty much...
I had Pike.
I had Roughhead over Pike.
I think Pike's been better than Roughhead.
Well, fair call.
I think the fact that he's pushed forward and he's taken a lot of contested marks. I think he's leading the league in contested marks. I think his improvement has been fantastic to the point where Sydney have no problem with subbing off Shane Mumford, who we know how good a ruckman he is. So I think he deserves a spot on the bench with his form this year. But probably a bit harsh on Roughhead. But Pike's, I think he's just a little bit ahead at the moment.
I think I'm really impressed with Matthew Stokes this year, because I think in the past few years he's been, probably overtaken by Varkon and Christensen at various times, and it's a credit to him to, I guess, get back to the form that he has displayed in spurts and really come on as a player.
Well, he's pushed up to the midfield. He's had, a newer role, I suppose, and he played a lot of, forward pocket, half forward, pushing up the ground a little bit. He could find the footy, but not to the extent that he is this year. I can't think off the top of my head how many disposals he's getting a game this year, but he's been fantastic, as an outside midfielder, running along the wings and delivering inside 50. He's been a very good player for Geelong. One of the reasons, they're so high up on the ladder, and, he's going to be a very important part of their midfield come finals time.
So Harry O'Brien is captain then? I think the lottery is the same as match review panel. It's just ridiculous.
So to be fair, he's actually had a good 2 weeks.
Yeah.
The rest of his season wasn't that good,
on
so
these
he's
2
pushing
weeks,
for it.
Absolutely.
The thing is, where do you play him? Because he's not a defender.
No. Well.
Oh, you play him on the wing right now. That's where he's playing.
No, Harry O'Brien wouldn't make the team. I'd put Jared McVeigh in ahead of him. I got him on the bench. I think his work off half back has been fantastic for Sydney. When they lose a clearance, it's generally McVeigh's tackling and sweeping up, and I put Sam Mitchell in for that same reason. He's a very good accumulator, and he was very good on Friday night. He's been fantastic all year for Hawthorn.
Text us in on 0427 767 767. Going to head to some messages. You're on Bound for Glory.
Oh, wow. Hey Scylla, did you know that Stegosaurus is more ancient to T-Rex than T-Rex is to us?
That's amazing, Kathy. But did you know that if you were on a star 65 million light years away and looked back at Earth, you would actually see the dinosaurs?
Well, you'd have to have a seriously powerful telescope.
Tune in to the Science Hour on Sundays at 3 p.m. to learn more about the wonderful world of science.
Call Rosadactyl.
Calling Rosadactyl Mobile.
Yo, Rose, where you at?
Yo, Till, I'm over here. I'm in.
Let the beat drop.
The birds.
9 to 10 a.m. Tuesdays, 90.7 Sin Radio.
Sin's international feature album of the week, Splash, Comfort.
Comprised of members from New Zealand, Australia and England, Splash released their debut. Comfort is warm, fuzzy and nostalgic.
Listen to the international feature album, Splash, Comfort, all this week on Sin.
You're listening to Bound for Glory, the only football show on Sin.
And I think we'll go through the previews today. First game up, GWS versus Port Adelaide. I'm sure lots of Victorians will care about this one.
The who gives a crap.
Yeah, pretty much. One team that's terribly, terribly out of form, and the other one that is just... It's good, but it just doesn't play last quarters. If matches were only 3 quarters long, they were only played thirds like ice hockey, I think GWS would have quite a few wins, or at least come pretty close to it. So they just can't run out the last quarter.
Well, they're a better team than 9 and 11 suggests. I think they showed that against Geelong last week when they matched them for 3 quarters, and they actually looked like a very good football side. So, you know, their record at the moment, I suppose, is a little bit harsh on them because, you know, they're a second-year team. They're still a bunch of 19 and 20-year-olds. So, but, you know, the quality's there. I think GWS at home, you know, they beat Port Adelaide there last time, led to Matthew Primus's sacking, of course. That was well documented. You know, I think GWS are still a good football side. You know, the way they play football, I think, you know, if they can control the game, you know, limit the way that Port Adelaide run and use uncontested possession, because, you know, that's Port Adelaide's game. You know, they run teams off their legs, and they did that, you know, most notably against West Coast. And I think if they can control the game, you know, they get off to a good start early, you know, lead by 20, 30 points, I think they can seal the game and record their first win at 2013.
Reece Palmer's been fantastic as a rejuvenated, I guess, defensive forward. If he plays, is Hartlett playing today? If so, I think he should get to him and, you know, shut him down, because I think that would be a pretty good matchup.
No, I don't think Hartlett's really beaten a tag this year. So, you know, he's one of those susceptible players, and I think, you know, he's a very good midfielder. You know, he's a brilliant kick. He's a good mark, and I think if Palmer can shut him down, I think, you know, Port Adelaide lose a lot of their midfield, and I think, you know, it goes a long way to winning the game.
I'm looking forward to seeing John Butcher come back. The
future.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting because these two midfields are probably two midfields to really watch for the future. Port as well as GWS, because obviously they've got Wines and Boak's still quite young, Wingard, etc. And then, of course, you've got, like, you know, the Whitfields, the Shields, the even Ward, who's still young, Green, etc. They've just got heaps and heaps of talent. They're just really raw at the moment. So,
and I think, you know, Adam Treloar's, of course, been a brilliant player for GWS this year. I think, you know, he's probably pushing Callum Ward and the best and fairest at the moment. Yeah, I think, you know, he flies on the radar with the development he's gone through this year and the way he's played.
Taylor Adams would probably be top 5 as well. He's been fantastic this year.
Yeah, probably, yeah, he actually would. You know, I think, you know, he's a very good contested midfielder, and, you know, he's good on the outside as well. He's got good disposals, so I think, yeah, he's probably top 5.
And when,
sorry, go for it.
No, I was going to say, and when this midfield, such as Adams and co, get really good, it's scary to think how many goals Jeremy Cameron could possibly kick. Like, you could see him kicking over 100 pretty easily. So,
and speaking of the midfield as well, amazing to see that GWS are actually ranked 4th in the competition for centre clearances.
Yeah, but clearances are irrelevant though.
Yeah, as we saw on Friday night. But still impressive stat.
Yeah, you'll still take that. Yeah. So let's go around the panel for tips.
I'm going to tip Port with no confidence whatsoever.
I think GWS can win.
Yeah, also going GWS.
Yeah, I'm the same as Heath. I've tipped Port with no confidence. They've stuffed up my chance at a Whopper before, and they're going to do it again. So
I think they've screwed around everybody.
Oh, I hate you, Port. No, seriously though, they're looking good. It's just their form's been crap. So I'm going Port, but GWS
I'm the same.
will probably win.
Port without any confidence whatsoever.
Yep. I guess the second game we've got on, the only other game we've got on, because this is one of those crappy bye rounds, is Collingwood versus the Bulldogs. Obviously, two teams that are probably, well, one's probably overperforming at the moment, the other's underperforming. But the Bulldogs have shown signs the last couple of weeks, and I guess Collingwood have against lower teams, but you'd have to say Collingwood's got the more class.
I think when the Bulldogs win, when they've got full confidence in one another, they're a very good uncontested side. I think that's been, their downfall over the past 18 months is that they're very good contested, but it goes nowhere from there. And I think, players like Ryan Griffin, of course, has been in brilliant form, and he's added a lot to that. And when they do win a lot of uncontested ball, and they do win as much as Collingwood do. And I think if they take it up to Collingwood, Brendan McCartney says, this is a game where you can actually stamp yourself on the rest of the competition and say, we're not, bottom four easy beats, we're actually a team that can threaten others, if they have an off day. And I think the Dogs do have a chance. It's not a certain Collingwood will win, let's not watch this game. I think the Dogs are a very good chance of winning today. I've tipped Collingwood, of course, but, I think, the Dogs could scare Collingwood very easily today.
I think it's going to be a battle of who can kick the straightest, with Collingwood actually ranked 16th for their goal kicking at 46.2%, whereas the Dogs are 5th with 53.4%, which is amazing.
No, it's not. I can tell you.
No.
It's really not.
Pretty happy about Michael Talia getting a game for the Dogs. I think he is a pick 37 or something a couple of years back. Key back, brother of Daniel, of course. I think he maybe not. I guess a Rory Thompson sudden emergence, but I think he'll be a good player in the future years.
Yeah, he's a very good player, but I think it's going to be important for the Dogs to source goals from the midfield. I don't think their forward line can kick a winning score. I don't think it does often enough. So, and Collingwood's got a good defence. They got Reid and Brown, who will probably nullify players like Jones. And I think, if players like Griffin, Boyd, Liberatore, Smith, if they hit the scoreboard, I think, the Dogs will go a long way to, getting close.
And I'd say probably with McCaffer doing the tagging role, you'd send him to Griffin.
Definitely.
Obviously there's Griffin. Boyd's the other one, but I think Griffin would be the one you'd go to first.
Griffin's the damaging one. And it's actually going to be quite an interesting battle because, Griffin's in, such good form over the past 4 weeks especially. And McCaffer's probably shut down effectively everyone he's tagged this year. He's taken out Del Santo. I think that was probably his most notable one.
Kennedy.
And
Josh Kennedy from Sydney had
as well, so
17 disposals, which is a fair effort.
So he has some big scalps, and I think Collingwood take out Griffin. The game's over.
Yeah. So
let's go around the panel for tips. Obviously, I'm going to go Collingwood.
I think the Bulldogs.
Well, I think the Dogs will scare Collingwood, but Collingwood, I think you got to tip them against the Dogs.
I reckon it's going to be actually a thrashing on Collingwood's going to trounce the Dogs, I think.
Only in the behinds. I think Collingwood will play for one quarter where they'll kick straight, the other three they'll miss, and they'll win by about 5 goals. It'll be terrible. No one watch. Not worth your time.
Plugs. Make sure you check us out on Facebook and Twitter. Bound for Glory FM is the @ for Twitter, and just to check us out on Bound for Glory on Facebook as well. Also check out Bound for Glory News. That's Bound for the number 4. Glory News on Twitter and Facebook as well. So
and the website, of course, boundforglorynews.com. We've got all TAC Cup stuff covered, as well as fantasy footy, opinion content. It's an awesome site.
Just on the Rising Stars, Tom Boyd, potential number 1 draft pick, did his ankle yesterday and not looking too good. So big news over there.
In 15 minutes of football, he kicked 3 goals and lined up for a 4th and did his ankle in 15 minutes. So he's probably picked one.
Still.
So he's going to be a very good player. Of course, we got all that covered.
All right, that's been another show. Thanks for listening on Bound for Glory. Check us out next week, same time, same place.
Yep.
I'm invincible. I'm paying money. The girl's happy. She's got no money. I got my rocks off. Oh, how good is this?